Okay, and give me your name.
Dale Denham.
Okay. Dale, how long have you been coming to Friendship Baptist Church?
Since I was 20 years old.
Okay. When did you join the church?
I actually joined in February 16th, 1975.
Okay. Were you saved here?
No, I was saved at when I was 11 years old up at Five Forks Baptist Church. But and I'm not really sure why I wasn't baptized. My uncle was the pastor there, but I was never baptized. And so after I came here and I joined the church, and then I was baptized here. Robert Ryan baptized me right back there in the baptistry.
What of your family were coming here or came with you when you came?
Actually, my husband, at the time was Rick King. He came with me. I was Rick, it was King then, and so he came with me. He didn't come right at first, but as I came for a while, and then several months later, he started coming.
Okay.
I do have a twin sister. She was not coming at that time. She came later.
Okay.
She and her husband were serving somewhere else, I think in Adairsville.
Okay.
And so they came several years later. I'm not sure exactly when Gail came.
Okay.
But she did come and serve here for several years.
What Sunday school class were you in?
I'm not sure when Eric Matheson became pastor here, but I think that's when Rick started coming and we joined a class here. And I think Carol may have been teaching that class. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was Carol. We were in a couples class. Carol Matheson.
Carol Matheson,
Eric's wife.
Okay.
I was trying to remember over the years who had all taught me, but I think it was Carol that was teaching that class.
Okay. What is your fondest memory of Friendship Baptist Church?
When my girls came along, I was an older mama. I was almost 30 before I had my first one, but the fondest memories, well, first of all, was with the Baptist women, with, Grace Epps and Joanne Hunt and just Nell Pickle, all those wonderful women that just nurtured all us younger women, being with them. Of course, there was a lot of young women involved too, but I basically just really remember them. And there was lots more, I'm sure, I'm just not thinking of. But when we got involved, when my kids came along, I was already teaching GAs. In fact, Carol and I taught them together. And then as things progressed, we ended up teaching ACT teens together. And so just having it with Donna Jackson was here, and we taught a lot of those classes together. And just being with them and teaching our kids together and just having all that wonderful time with the young kids. I know we had a sleepover at my house one time, and Stephanie Bingham came, and just a whole bunch of the kids that went to church here, and we just had having that time with them. And then when my children came along, they just, babies, they just took care of them, and they grew in the church as well. So I think some of the best times was just being with them and just learning from my Sunday school class, and then learning when you teach kids, you learn yourself a lot of those lessons. So that's some of my fondest memories.
A lot of people don't know what the RAs are.
Actually, the GAs.
Our GAs,
was
I'm
Girls
sorry.
in Action.
Okay.
That was Girls in Action, and the RAs were Royal Ambassadors. So that were the boys, and so we taught them separate, of course. So the men taught the boys, and the ladies taught the children. And so we had Girls in Action, and we did that. And then at some point I was teaching ACT teens, and I'm not sure how I got to that point. But I guess as my kids got older, I don't know. I'm not really sure. But we taught ACT teens for a while as well. So that's what that meant back at that time. So.
How many people do you think were coming to Friendship when you first joined here?
Oh, let's see. It was a smaller that we hadn't added on yet, but there were quite a few people here. If I had to guess, how many people would that hold right there?
Probably 50 to 75.
At least 75, because we had the little ante rooms back there. Rooms there were two little rooms that you could shut. Pull the partition and have Sunday schools back there, Sunday school rooms. And so I know at some Sundays we had to open that up.
Yeah.
So I would say at least 75, if not more.
Do you remember the lunch bunch?
I do remember the lunch bunch. Yeah. I was actually working. I didn't get to come because I was working. I worked at the hospital just retired after 46 years a couple of years ago. But I do remember it well. In fact, a lot of sometimes we bought food and got it from there. So they would have it occasionally. We would buy food by the lunch place. But I very well is Nell Pickle, June was involved with that, and Nell and Grace, and of course all their husbands. And there were many more. I know Sybil was helping with that, and Martha may have been working at that time. I think so the ones that were already retired or were working. But yes, I remember that very well. They had lots of plates by it. A lot of people came and ate here.
Yeah.
So I remember that well.
You may have been a part of it as an invitee, the Joy Club.
I actually never got involved with that because I guess my I had my children later, and then I was just so working. I was a single mom for 7 years, and so it took call a lot. So I really didn't get involved with that. I know they did a lot of fun things. I followed them. I know they went on little trips. They went up when Jenny Bearden, didn't she have the up at LJ had the apple house at her apple orchard, and they would go up there. I remember a lot of the fun things. I thought, oh, that'd be fun, but I never got to get involved because I was so busy working. So,
do you remember homecomings when you were growing up, or when you started in here?
Yes, I remember the homecomings very well. They were a lot of fun, a lot of seeing people. Because sometimes people move away; they move to other states even. But it was so nice to see everybody. So people come back that you've seen over the years. That you don't get to see anymore. Of course, there was all the people that still come here, and our families, our children have went other places, but on homecoming now came home, so it was fun. It was a good time of fellowship there.
What was your favorite dessert?
It would have to be Nell Pickle's caramel cake. Oh my goodness. I remember we used to have Lottie Moon auctions, and we would raise money for missions. And I can remember her cakes going for $150, $200. And my daddy was one of them. It didn't matter what the price got to, he was buying that cake.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think anybody made a bad dessert.
No, they were all wonderful. It was hard to pick. Yeah. It was hard to pick. But I can say I love caramel. I'll eat it any way it comes. So that was my favorite. We don't have any bad cooks. Didn't ever have any bad cooks in this church.
You remember revivals at Friendship?
I do remember that. In fact, one of my daughter, Erica, was saved at one of our revivals. Yeah. And actually started thinking about it. She got saved at home, but that got her started thinking about it. And I do remember those. They were wonderful, wonderful times. And having some of the pastors that preached over the years. So it was a good time.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about Friendship?
The main thing that I've always is you just feel at home here, and over the years, going through growing up with your kids and all the things that you go through, and the men are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but men minister to women, and just the women of this church have always been so loving and so helpful to the younger women. And of course, that's what the Bible tells us to do. The older women are to teach the younger women, and just to be there to nurture us along and help us to, make good decisions, just to be good role models. Basically, they didn't really have to say anything. If they did, and of course they did, they always taught us, but just by the way they lived their lives and the role models that they were just very helpful to me. I came from a good family and good, grandparents and aunts and uncles and all of that, but just to have that reinforced at church and along, of course, you get along with your grandparents. They all go home and be with the Lord, and then you've still got all this wonderful church family to help take care of you and to nurture you.
And we've added
Ennis, Denham. My first memory is back in the 90s when Marvin Epps, who was one of my service customers at Wynn Pontiac, was talking to me one day and telling me about the chicken dinners that they cooked out here on the first Friday of each month. And when he got to tell me about it, he said, well, I deliver. And I said, you deliver? And he said, yeah. He said, you just tell me how many plates you want and we'll bring them to you. And so I started taking orders for the guys in the shop. And then one Friday I got out of there and came out here to see what it was all about. Yeah. And that was my first memory of Friendship.
And that was what we called them, the lunch bunch. that first time here, what was the line like to get back there?
The line not only ran out of the fellowship hall, it was lined up from the serving table, outside, down the wall of the fellowship hall, and then down through the parking lot along the far bank of parking spaces. And the first time I came and got in line, I wasn't the last one, but when I joined the line, I was where the parking spots end, and it went beyond me. And my understanding was it was like that every Friday that they served.
Did you have a problem finding a seat when you got in the door?
Oh, absolutely. There weren't any. So I had planned to come and sit down and eat, but that particular day I wound up and took mine on the go because there weren't any spaces.
When was the first time you came to a service at Friendship?
The first time I came to a service was after Dale and I had met, and she invited me to come to church because we were talking about a number of people that attended here who I knew, and that would have been in the fall of 2002. We got married in February of 2003.
Did you get married here at Friendship or somewhere else?
Right here.
Right here.
Who was the pastor? Who performed the service?
And,
Paul Battles.
yeah, Paul performed our, he sure did.
Yeah.
Paul Battles performed it.
Put you on the spot, didn't it, Dave?
Well, actually, I was trying to think of who was pastor here at that time.
Right.
But it wasn't Paul. Paul had been our pastor, but he wasn't at that time.
Right.
But he married us.
Yeah. Alan Crosby,
Alan
maybe.
Crosby was our
Crosby was
pastor.
our
Yes, he
pastor.
was.
Yes.
He sure was.
Because I joined right before we got married.
Okay.
I moved to Letter.
Okay.
I grew up in, I never grew up, I grew out. But I'm originally from Mississippi, and I attended Second Avenue Baptist Church in Laurel, Mississippi.
Okay.
Which the building is still there to this day. It's still a church, but it's not a Baptist church. And I had my letter moved from there to here.
Is that where you got saved?
That's where I was saved and baptized.
How old were you then?
I was 12.
12 years old. Was that at a church service or a VBS service? Or
It was a church service.
Okay.
It was.
What is your fondest memory of Friendship Baptist Church?
Our wedding day.
Smart
Our wedding
man.
day was wonderful. Yes.
I'm gonna tell you, it was really great. We didn't have the wings at that time, and the place was packed, and it was, to me, that was just wonderful to see that many people turn out for our event. With just so many friends and family, and we appreciated them all being here.
Some of my fondest times too is two of our grandchildren were both saved here.
And which two was that?
Cassidy Barefoot and Tyler Heath. Both of them came with us, came to church here with us, and was saved here. So
That's pretty special.
That is.
Cassidy was baptized. Tyler was baptized later at another church, but he came here, and both of them learned about the Lord here. We did Awanas with Tyler. Cassidy was just Sunday school and church, but we were doing Awanas then. So Ennis and I both taught Awanas and brought Tyler, and it was just some good memories of our kids growing up here, and the things that they did little Christmas programs with the kids, and they were in that. So it was just a good time.
So let me go back to Awanas just a second. Now there was different levels in Awanas that was taught. Which did y'all teach?
Ours was the 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, 4th and 5th grade.
And then they had competitions also, didn't
Out there in the, you mean their games that they played?
Well, I mean
Yes.
the competitions between the
To
other
learn.
churches.
Churches as
Yes,
well.
yes, they did. And we actually went to one of those competitions somewhere down in Marietta. I can't remember where it was.
I can't either, but yeah.
And we did really well. We didn't win the whole but we did well. They actually had games too that and they practiced those out in the fellowship hall. In fact, all the tape that was on the floor just stayed there for the Awanas all the time. I often thought, were people getting married out there having the receptions, and there was all of our stuff on the floor. But evidently that was all right. It was for a good cause.
And part of the competitions with Awanas was scripture.
Learning scripture.
Okay. They had to memorize a
They had
verse.
to memorize the verses, and they had to be able to say them back to you without prompting. Now, when you're teaching them, of course, you would have to prompt them, but they had to learn them and be able to say them back without being prompted. And they didn't go to another Bible verse until they learned that one. So it wasn't like you had so long and you moved on. You just stayed with it till they could learn it.
Did they have a goal that they need to meet as far as the number of verses maybe?
I don't remember actually being a goal, but you know, kids are real competitive. You don't make them that way. They just are born that way. So I don't remember being a goal, do you? That they had to learn so many.
I don't remember that.
I remember they stayed pretty close because they wanted to be like their peers. So they studied hard to make sure that they got that. And we had a lot of volunteers. You know, they would take them out and work with them. So even if you weren't the main teacher, you had volunteers, people that helped you. So that was wonderful. We had a lot of, I remember them taking them out in the hall and working with them so that they couldn't be hearing the other kids.
This church has always went above and beyond to support the youth of this church.
Absolutely.
I would say so from my
Absolutely.
experience and exposure. I would say most definitely.
I know with my children when growing up that they were very with Gail and Erica, they were very always involved with the youth group, and they always had such good leaders. Gayla went on a mission trip out to Oklahoma, and it was not long. It was after the Oklahoma bombing. They went to that site and visited. They went to an Indian reservation and ministered there, and that was, you know, for a 12-year-old girl to see something like that, it was really an eye-opening experience for her. Actually, she got saved. She'd gotten saved here early when she was younger, but out there, I think she finally was nailed down to her. She realized what that really meant. I remember calling me at 1 o'clock in the morning, that nearly shouting that happened, and so it was a very good experience for them. We had good youth leaders over the years.
Very good. Well, is there anything else the two of you guys would like to tell everybody?
I would think the thing that I would like to say is I am just so proud to be a part of this church. It means a lot to me. And I kind of got back to my roots when I joined here. And there's many a Sunday morning when we sing the old hymns that my mom and my dad just come to mind immediately. Because I could, in my mind, I go right back to 2nd Avenue Baptist Church in Laurel. That's where we were every Sunday morning. And that just brings back those kind of memories. So I guess I'll take those with me always. And those are some precious memories for me.
That's great. Anything else?
And just that friendships always felt like home. It's just always been home church to me. Wouldn't imagine going anywhere else. It's a church family, and your church family is just as important, you know, to you as your own family, because they support they help your family to be what it should be. So it's just always, it's just home.